The arena stretched beneath 3 moons, its obsidian floor polished to a mirror shine that reflected the roaring crowd of thousands. Beings from across 17 star systems had gathered for this moment, their varied forms creating a tapestry of scales, fur, chitin, and crystalline structures that shimmered under the atmospheric shields. They had come to witness the undefeated, the unstoppable, the legend himself, Kraxith the immovable. Marcus Chin stood in the challenger's entrance, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. His hands, wrapped in traditional earthboxing tape, trembled slightly. Not from fear, though fear would have been reasonable. No, Marcus trembled from the adrenaline, from the electric anticipation that coursed through his veins like liquid lightning. Around him, his small team of humans, Coach Rivera, his cut man Jimmy, and his manager Sarah, exchanged worried glances. "You don't have to do this," Sarah said for the 100th time, her voice barely audible over the crowd's thunderous chanting of Kraxitha's name. "We can forfeit. No one would blame you." Marcus rolled his shoulders, feeling the weight of Earth's hopes on them. In the 6 months since humanity had been introduced to the Galactic Combat League, no human fighter had won a single match. They were too small, the experts said, too fragile. Their bone density couldn't compare to the silicon-based Kronar. Their reaction time was laughable next to the Vexari, who processed time at nearly twice the speed. And their strength? Pathetic compared to the graviton-enhanced Thulians. "He's never been hit," Coach Rivera muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "In 47 fights across 8 years. Not once. They say his defensive computation is perfect. He sees every strike coming before the attacker even commits to it." Marcus smiled, a thin curve of his lips that didn't reach his eyes. "That's because everyone fights him the same way." The announcement echoed across the arena in a dozen languages, translated by neural implants. Approaching the ring, the challenger from Sector 7934, Subsystem SOL, Planet Earth, Marcus Chun. The crowd's reaction was immediate and predictable. Laughter, not the cruel kind, but the genuine amusement of beings who found the very notion of this matchup absurd. A human? Challenging Kraxith? It was like watching a child challenge a hurricane. Entertainment, certainly, but not competition. Marcus walked down the illuminated pathway, his simple black shorts and bare feet a stark contrast to the elaborate combat suits worn by most fighters. He didn't need protection. Protection implied he planned to get hit. As he climbed into the ring, a raised platform 20 meters in diameter, he could see the betting boards shifting. The odds against him had reached astronomical figures. Then Kraxith emerged. The Vexari champion stood nearly 3 meters tall, his 4 arms ending in hands that could crush stone. His exoskeleton gleamed a deep purple-black, and his compound eyes, hundreds of lenses working in concert, could track movement across multiple spectrums simultaneously. Those eyes had never missed a feint, never fallen for a fake, never failed to predict an opponent's trajectory. The referee, a neutral consortium official, floated between them on an anti-gravity platform. "Fighters, you know the rules. Combat continues until submission, incapacitation, or death. Kraxith, as champion, you have the right to show mercy. Human Shin, you have the right to surrender at any time. Do you understand?" Both fighters nodded. Then at the sound of the tone never finished. Marcus exploded forward the instant the referee's mandibles began to separate, the instant before sound could travel. Years of studying Earth's greatest fighters had taught him something the galaxy had forgotten. Sometimes the most sophisticated computation couldn't account for the simplest variable, audacity. The first strike was a jab, not aimed at Kraxith, but at the space where Kraxith's defensive sensors would expect an attack. It came fast, faster than a human should move, because Marcus had spent 6 months in enhanced gravity, training his fast-twitch muscles to operate beyond their natural limits. Kraxith's systems registered the movement. In the nanoseconds it took for his neural network to calculate the trajectory, designate it as a feint, and prepare for the real attack that should follow from the opposite side. The jab landed. It struck Kraxith's thorax, a glancing blow that did no damage but accomplished something unprecedented. It touched him. The crowd's noise dropped to confusion. Had that actually? The second strike came from the same side, violating every principle of combat strategy Kraxith's programming understood. The same hand, the same angle, just slightly higher. It connected with his shoulder joint. Kraxith's four eyes tried to recalibrate. This couldn't be happening. No one attacked in straight lines. No one repeated the exact same. The third punch crashed into the side of his head. Marcus had discovered something in his endless video analysis of Kraxith's fights. The Vexari champion had evolved beyond instinct, had trained himself to trust his computational combat prediction absolutely. He didn't react to what was happening. He reacted to what should happen next. His perfect defensive record wasn't built on reflexes, but on anticipation. The fourth strike hit Kraxith's midsection as the champion finally began to raise his primary arms in defense. But he was raising them to block where Marcus should be pivoting to, not where Marcus was. The fifth punch landed square on Kraxith's mandible joint, and this one had power behind it. Real power, born from legs that had squatted under twice Earth's gravity, channeled through hips that had practiced this exact rotation 10,000 times, delivered through a fist that knew it had only one chance to make history. Kraxith's head snapped back. The arena fell silent. Then the champion's combat systems finally caught up with reality. His four arms moved in perfect synchronization. His stance shifted, his eyes refocused. The fight truly began, but something had changed in those first 3 seconds. Something fundamental had broken in the legend of Kraxith the Immovable. He had been hit 5 times by a human, and Marcus, dancing backward now with the fluid footwork of Muhammad Ali, wearing the slight smile of Floyd Mayweather, carrying the relentless pressure of Mike Tyson in his youth. Marcus knew that the psychological war had already been won. Kraxith came forward, all 4 arms working in patterns that had destroyed champions from 100 worlds. Each combination was perfect, geometrically flawless, designed by the greatest combat algorithms in the galaxy. They cut through the air where Marcus had been, where Marcus should have been, where any logical fighter would have been. But Marcus wasn't logical. He was human. And humans, for all their weaknesses, had one advantage that no computer could calculate. They were gloriously, magnificently unpredictable when properly trained. That he slipped under a quadruple combination that should have ended the fight, his head moving in a figure-8 pattern that Coach Rivera had adapted from old Earth boxing. He countered with a body shot that made Kraxith's exoskeleton crack audibly. The crowd gasped. Impossible, someone in the front row muttered in Thulian, but it wasn't impossible. It was happening. For 12 minutes, Marcus Chun did the impossible. He made Kraxith, the perfect fighter, miss. Not by much. The Vexari strikes came within millimeters of Marcus's face, his body, his legs. But in fighting, millimeters might as well be miles. And every time Kraxith missed, every time his combat prediction system failed to account for the sheer irrationality of Marcus's movement, the human countered a hook to the body. A uppercut that grazed the champion's chin. A spinning back fist that seemed to come from nowhere because Marcus himself hadn't decided to throw it until the instant it left his hand. By the 15th minute, Kraxith was breathing hard, his exoskeleton cracked in 3 places, one of his eyes damaged from a perfectly placed jab. The champion who had never been hit now bore the marks of a real fight. By the 20th minute, the crowd had stopped laughing. They leaned forward, millions of beings watching something they'd never seen before. A human, a member of one of the galaxy's physically weakest species, not just surviving, but competing. By the 25th minute, Kraxith made a mistake. It was small, nearly imperceptible. He committed to a straight punch with his primary right arm a fraction of a second before his other limbs were ready to follow. It was the kind of mistake only someone truly desperate would make, someone whose perfect system had been shattered by the impossible reality standing before him. Marcus saw it, not with computation or prediction. He saw it with instinct. With the fighter's intuition that his coach had cultivated through endless sparring sessions where Rivera would suddenly break pattern, would suddenly do the unexpected, would train Marcus to recognize that split-second moment when an opponent stops thinking and starts reacting. Marcus stepped inside the punch, too close for Kraxith to adjust. He planted his back foot with all the force of a man who knew this was his only chance. He rotated his hips with perfect form. He extended his arm with every ounce of strength his enhanced training had built. The right cross caught Kraxith on the point of his mandible, in the exact spot Marcus had hit with his 5th punch of the fight. the one weak point that had been created in those opening 3 seconds. Kraxith's legs trembled. His forearms lowered slowly. His compound eyes lost focus. And then, for the first time in his career, the immovable fell. The referee's count seemed to echo in slow motion. 1, 2, 3. Kraxith's primary arm twitched, trying to push up. 4, 5, 6. The champion's eyes began to refocus. 7, 8. Kraxith made it to one knee. 9. The Vexari champion stood, his entire body trembling, his stance showing for the first time in his career that he had been hurt. The referee looked to him. "Can you continue?" Kraxith's mandibles clicked in the Vexari pattern for assent. The fight would continue, but as Marcus reset his stance, as the two fighters approached each other for the final round, something had fundamentally changed. It wasn't just that Kraxith had been knocked down. It was that the invincible algorithm had become mortal. The perfect prediction engine had discovered uncertainty, and Marcus Chun, the human who should never have stood a chance, now fought with the confidence of someone who knew the truth that the rest of the galaxy was just beginning to understand. Perfection, when it finally fails, shatters completely. The final round lasted 6 minutes. In that time, Marcus landed 43 punches. Some hurt Kraxith, some didn't. It didn't matter. Each one was a refutation of everything the galaxy believed about humanity's place in the combat hierarchy. When the final bell sounded, both fighters stood, bloodied, exhausted, pushed beyond their limits. The judges would decide the winner on points, but everyone in the arena already knew the truth. Marcus Chun hadn't just won a fight. He had rewritten what the galaxy thought was possible. The referee raised his hand in victory, as the crowd erupted in a mixture of shock and celebration. As Coach Rivera and Sarah rushed into the ring with tears streaming down their faces, Marcus looked across at Kraxith. The Vexari champion met his eyes, and in that moment, there was something like respect. "They said no one had ever hit you," Marcus said quietly, his words translated by his neural implant. Kraxith's mandibles clicked in a pattern that the translator struggled with before settling on. They were right. Until you. In the months that followed, Marcus Chin's victory would change everything. Humanity's combat applications would skyrocket. The Combat League would establish a new weight and species classification system. A dozen human fighters would enter the professional ranks, and while not all would succeed, they would fight with the knowledge that it was possible. But in that moment, in the arena under 3 moons, none of that mattered. All that mattered was that a human had done the impossible, and the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again.